ultimately where we look to invest and purchase brands to spread them across the country through a franchise network is learning a vocational skill or a life skill, but ultimately teaching confidence. And Young Chefs Academy, Flower Power, what they teach is confidence in the kitchen, as you've aptly named this episode, which I love, Cooking with Confidence. But at the end of the day, what they're really gaining as a child is self-esteem. We see a lot of kids that come to Young Chefs Academy that have a brother or sister that is the star of the volleyball team, baseball team, track, basketball, mostly sports. The parents come, and similar to what we were kind of just discussing, they say, this is my creative one. This is my one that wants to do something else. And I sometimes read into that as sort of a backhanded compliment, because I don't think their child isn't interested in sports means that they're different. It means they're trying to find their passion.
Welcome to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast with your host, Thomas Miller. And I am so excited to have with us Lee Feldman. I'm going to read his bio in a moment. But today's topic is cooking up confidence, getting kids in the kitchen. This is not an oppressive regime podcast. This will make sense, people. Trust me. There's a lot of good stuff to helping kids get in the kitchen and obviously learn amazing cooking skills. And Lee is going to tell us a lot more about what the heck he does and how he helps enable kids and families, of course, to build this amazing connection vis-a-vis cooking. So Lee is the CEO of Youth Franchise Brands, a platform for franchise brands that play in the space of youth, family, and team learning, with current ownership of brands such as Young Chefs Academy and Flower Power Studios. He's the former CEO of Beamlight Sauna and former CEO and brand president of Bishop's Cuts/Color. He's worked on the franchise side for forever, right? He's going to talk a lot about that. He's worked with great brands such as Nike, Mazda, Warner Brothers, Lego, Google, and more. He's got tons of experience in advertising and PR. And most importantly, he's trying to figure out how to parent 4 children, 12, 10, 8, and 5. Takes one to know one. I'm trying to do the same with my 2 boys here. So thank you so much, Lee, for being on the show, and super excited to hear all the great stuff that you and your company are doing to get kids in the kitchen, get their hands in the flour, in the whatever, right? In baking and cooking, etc. So thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. And I do want to stress the importance. Obviously, the hardest job, the parenting one, the one I'm doing the worst at. But the other parts, I think we're doing okay. I also, obviously want to thank you for having me. And I want to encourage your listeners to listen to all of your episodes. I have done a deep dive into the rest of the show. There is so much value in all the things your guests are bringing. I am thankful again that you're having me. I'm hoping to do the same. I don't know if they should listen to my parenting advice, but certainly on the business side, there's some things I can suggest.
Oh, stop. You're too self-deprecating. It's really funny. Total side note, I was actually doing a parent coaching session this morning, and this mom was struggling to receive compliments I was giving her, and it takes one to know one. It is amazing how sometimes as parents, we just struggle to hear you're a good dad or you're a good mom. And so just a quick little PSA for all the parents listening. If someone says you're doing a good job, don't run it through your inner critic filter of, you versus what you wish you were doing or what you think you're supposed to be doing. Just receive it. It's amazing. It's taken me forever to receive compliments. I always kind of pivot. So I'm challenging you.
I know you mean it seriously, but obviously if you're from the South and somebody says, you're doing your best, sweetie, maybe you could read into it a little bit. And I think that's what I do coming from the South. You're doing great. I'm like, oh, thanks. That's the bless your heart. I get it. I see what you're doing.
Is that like a left-hand compliment in the South?
Yeah.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
That's my filter, having been born in Atlanta, that any compliment I hear, I put it through that of what are they really saying? But yes, you're absolutely right. People do need to be more accepting. And of course, I think believing that how your kids act with you might be different than how they act in the real world with strangers. And I know I hear it from people, and I'm sure you say it all the time as well. Being around you as the parent, that is their safe space. That is where they know they can express themselves fully and differently. But it's really a matter of how do they interact with the real world? What's their situational awareness? What's their spatial awareness? And I always forget that how they are at home is not necessarily how they are with friends or with parents of friends or their teachers or their coaches. And that when you do get those compliments of, your kid's doing great, you're doing great, you really do need to accept it. So yes, part
Yeah.
joke, but yes, you are very correct. I need to do
Yeah.
better at
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
as well.
Cool. So I'm so excited for folks to learn more about Young Chefs Academy and Flower Power. I got that right?
Yeah,
I get that right? Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So bring us up to speed. Give us the kind of the what the heck is this? Talk to us about how folks can get involved. How does it help kids? What the heck are you guys doing? What's the mission? What's it all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm part of a group called Youth Franchise Brands. And so we are interested, as you kindly read in my bio, in brands that sort of overlap in the youth, family, and leadership development corporate training space. We are currently focused on two brands, Flower Power Studios and Young Chefs Academy, that play in kids cooking. Ultimately, where we look to invest and purchase brands to spread them across the country through a franchise network is learning a vocational skill or a life skill, but ultimately teaching confidence. And Young Chefs
Mm-hmm.
Academy, Flower Power, what they teach is confidence in the kitchen, as you've aptly named this episode, which I
Mm-hmm.
love, Cooking with
Mm-hmm.
Confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, what they're really gaining as a child is self-esteem. We see a lot
Mm-hmm.
of kids that come to Young Chefs Academy that have a brother or sister that is the star of the volleyball team,
Mm-hmm.
baseball
Mm-hmm.
team, track,
Mm-hmm.
basketball,
Mm-hmm.
mostly sports. And the parents come, and similar to what we were kind of just discussing, they say, "This is my creative one. This
Mm-hmm.
is my one that wants to do something
Mm-hmm.
else." And
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes read into that as sort of a backhanded compliment because I don't think their child isn't interested in sports means that they're different. It means they're
Sure.
trying to find their passion, the
Sure.
things that make their heart flutter, which is what my son once said to me when he was doing an activity. And so as a parent, you're constantly chasing out, how do
Mm-hmm.
I find an activity where my
Mm-hmm.
child leaves the activity and goes, oh my God, I entered a flow state. That's not what they're going to
Mm-hmm.
say, but they're going to say,
Mm-hmm.
that was so much fun. I can't wait to go back. And that's what we're
Sure.
ultimately trying to bring with the culinary education at Young Chefs Academy and Flower Power Studios, where kids feel like they have a place. They feel like they are seen and recognized by their parents because maybe they, again, are not the volleyball or football player. And they can then demonstrate what they've learned from taking classes and becoming members at our academies.
Mm-hmm. There's so much there. I mean, my brain is going a million miles an hour from neuroscience to it's also a good skill to potentially get a date down the line. I was actually just telling my oldest who's 15, and I was like, if you really want to, rizz up a girl, he identifies as straight. I'm like, knowing how to cook, and he does know how to cook. And so we have two boys I'm very proud of to say that can hold their own. Obviously, they're maybe at the blue belt level, which I know you're going to speak of the different levels of Young Chefs Academy, but they definitely can they know how to
I
cut,
love
they know
that.
how to they know how to be a sous chef. And there's so much there, and I think of for so many of the families that are listening, they may or may not have a child who's neurodivergent. For those who are not knowing what the hell I'm talking about, that's pretty much anything from ASD, autistic spectrum disorders, to ADHD, to dyslexic, to whatever, right? Any kind of LD potentiality, or just ostensibly someone who thinks differently, learns differently. And we know there's multiple intelligences out there. And I'm definitely a kinesthetic learner, right? I love to literally put my hands on things. I'm an experiential learner. That's why I had such a hard time sitting in a desk, back to back to back all day long. And so you're inviting, yes, the child, like you said, that may have the brother, sister, whomever, who's that more traditional learner or traditional athlete, to now have this place where they can foster their own sense of talent, expertise, empowerment, but also just in general. I mean, to get kids off screens and to get kids in a kitchen and get their hands into things that where they can actually also fail forward and experiment in real time, I think is just fantastic.
Oh, I
you
couldn't
know
agree more. I think especially
yeah.
coming sort of out of COVID, I don't know if that's the
Yeah.
correct term because I know COVID is coming back depending upon where you live and if you think COVID is real. But, in my area, they talk about COVID coming back. And I think so many
Yep.
kids from that period lost sort of the tactile play and development that a lot of
Mm-hmm.
kids experience at either traditional schools or non-traditional schools. And
Sure.
I think that's why YCA having sort of a Montessori model of stages of cognitive development, self-guided
Mm-hmm.
learning, interests, but having it be that touch, as you just talked on, that kinesthetic piece of handling a knife and learning proper knife skills, handling the ingredients, understanding muffin method of dry and wet mixing, and really then being able to take it, like you said, for your son to a higher level. And whether it's for self-interest or impressing a potential future partner, but just having that confidence to navigate not just a residential kitchen, but a prep kitchen or a fine dining restaurant. And that's what we're ultimately teaching. Again, yes, the skills, but we're ultimately teaching is being able to walk into any space and going, I got this. I'm here. And, I think people dream of that, being on a plane and somebody screaming, is there a doctor on board? Or, oh, we need somebody who's a pilot. And being able to say, oh, I can stay cool and calm in this. I have the skills and I can demonstrate them.
Yes. I mean, the other thing that is kind of a maybe side note, and I'm going to have another guest on about psychotic parents. Are
you bringing me back for that one?
Yeah. No, I was going to say psychotic athletic. I didn't finish. I didn't qualify that one. Psychotic athletic parents. I think of what's missing a lot too, in addition to the schools, thank God, are trying. And the world, I think, is thankfully now recognizing that AI, is coming for the coders and coming for a lot of things. And they're not necessarily coming for the electricians yet. And I don't think they're coming necessarily for the chefs yet, right? And hopefully maybe never, or, hopefully maybe never on the human touch side of most professions. But to have, the world finally realize that alternative schools, as they used to be called, and tech schools, giving a child a sense of mastery vis-a-vis a skill, which happens to be, in this case, of course, cooking, which is a very viable one and one that will be there forever. But also just this idea of failing forward. And that's the piece I see with so many families. I call them like Pupa Diamond parents, right? They're so tight and wound up that they don't allow their child to basically fail forward toward failure and or towards success, which, as you know, are intertwined. And that failure in cooking is just data. Like, it's just like, oh, right, I put too much baking soda, I put too little whatever, I put too much, curry or cinnamon or whatever that is. I love that. And I think that's another thing that's massively missing right now, in terms of a lot of these parents are trying to create bot children to get to bot university to go become, bot adult. And so, again, as much as there are going to be factual, scientific, if you will, realities of cooking, and we shouldn't just let our children not understand the chemistry, let's say, of cooking or how to do something. But I love the fact that there's an element of play. I love the fact that there's an element of experimentation. And again, you could be creative and then learn from that creativity, and you don't have to be constrained within the rules, if you will. But you also want to learn why are you breaking the rules, and what is first foundational to cooking. So speak to like absolutely. How you bring someone along. How do you bring how does a child enter this process, and what does that story arc look like?
Yeah, no, you nailed so many things, and there's so many ways I want to take this conversation. But the foundational part of having the skills to go then explore and discover and create, where sort of creative thought is really at the forefront of what matters, is what we do. And yes, you touched on all these things where vocational programs and hands-on skills, where we talk about not being replaced, I think is so important, especially as you talked about AI, the relation to either personal employees that interact with people, or production employees that, like you said, AI is coming for the coders. And how important it is as educators to have personal people that understand how they're going to communicate and sort of teach these skills that are obviously digested and then showcased and shown and performed to perfection to be able to then get your certifications. So many pieces. I think the part that YCA really stresses incredibly well is that there is always opportunity to create something new. We talk about in our education and learning moments in our classes about recipes that were discovered accidentally. I don't have this ingredient. What can I use to replace that? Let's try this. What have we discovered? And whether you believe it's true or not, the myth of chocolate chip cookies were discovered accidentally. There's a lot of things that people love because people were just playing. And that's what we need to get back to. I know people talk about that all the time related to children, sort of the joy of play and how things are so regimented. And I love that is the balance of YCA. And that is what made us really interested in it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, and I've talked on this podcast a bunch about the importance of free play, unstructured play, getting kids in the woods. Again, I have kids who play at a psychotic level of, soccer, and I get again why there are levels, and I'm a big fan of, being able to be honest with children. Like, not every child's going to play at the highest or dance at the highest level or sing at the highest level, and you're going to have levels in your Young Chefs Academy. But this idea of creating a healthy dopamine hit for a child vis-a-vis on the front end, and again allowing them to have that sense of mastery, like you said, what a boost to their self-esteem to go from A to Z. And even if Z is not perfect or fails or flops or whatever, I mean, and the piece about working with lacking ingredients. Just the other day, my son and I literally were making oatmeal. I would say oatmeal raisin. I'm voted 3 to 4 in my family. No one likes raisins in my family. It kills me. So I always have to grab a little bit of the batter and throw my raisins in. But we didn't have eggs, and so we grabbed applesauce and we grabbed pumpkin butter. And we mixed the applesauce and the pumpkin butter, and I kind of guessed what I assumed it would be comparatively from a wet standpoint to eggs. And they were freaking awesome. And there was peanut butter. And then
Wow.
the ultimate value add of this, like why this is like a fire recipe, and we're probably going to do it again, is we got to eat the batter.
Oh,
So
amazing. Yeah, no
we were
eggs.
just like eating. It was peanut butter, pumpkin butter, applesauce, and obviously, brown sugar, nutmeg, and cardamom. And we went like kind of a more Indian route. It was really awesome. With the clove even in there and like some molasses, and we were just like wailing on the batter. So yeah, that doesn't exist that much. Like, just that alone, never mind the cookies were bomber, and we totally, they came out great. But even if they hadn't, that's like a great memory. That's just like
Oh,
an
absolutely.
awesome. And the piece I love, which I want you to speak to as well, is that the parents have opportunities, of course, on multiple levels to be involved. And there's such a healthy. I'm also Italian, so this is going to be like my Sicilian coming out here, but like I think of some of my favorite memories are in the kitchen. Obviously, so for some families I work with, unfortunately, children of alcoholics, children of substance abusing parents, chaos, dysfunction. I have families, unfortunately, I coach and work with whose kids have grabbed knives in the kitchen. So, there's some challenges to the kitchen too. Don't get me wrong; it's not all Pollyanna, but that idea of being alongside your child in the kitchen and doing something, again, whether it's a flop or a home run, there's so much there. So speak to how you build attachment too between, healthy, secure attunement and attachment between parents and child through this program.
Yeah, that is my favorite thing to hear and read and see is when I'm visiting locations or reading reviews or receiving an email from a parent that says, my son or daughter came home and they decided to make dinner on Saturday. And they made a number of the recipes that they learned at Young Chefs Academy or Flower Power. There's nothing I love more than that because they're really showing and demonstrating to the parents, hey, this is what I am learning. And that's the greatest joy is seeing as a parent, your child demonstrating those things. And at YCA, the progression is very specific. We as you talked about your son's being a blue belt, we start out, everybody is a white chef jacket. And as they progress through the learning and stages of education, they start earning badges and stripes, and they eventually work their way up to a black jacket, like you would in a karate or jiu-jitsu or taekwondo program, where you become a black belt in those programs to show that you have learned and mastered these techniques. And that's the part is these kids go home to their parents and say, oh, let's prepare this together, or I'm going to prepare this for you. I'm going to chiffonade. I'm going to Juliet. I'm going baton. And parents are going, what? You're going to do what? It almost becomes like speaking another
Those
language.
sound like curse words, by the way. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure you need to wash your mouth out. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's those parts where the parents are going, oh my God, this is incredible. I'm able to communicate with my child through sort of a different language. And that is the language of being in the kitchen.
Or be a student. I mean, like what I'm hearing there, and again, my wife and I, we can throw down, but I don't have, the training, and you're making me want to. CIA, Culinary Institute, Institute of America, I think,
Yeah.
is in New York, and ate there, and it was so cool to see, the sommelier and the, everyone was there and they're educating you as you're eating. And it's just like there's so much pride there. But also I think of a child that, let's say, could be struggling academically or could be struggling socially, could be struggling athletically. And now they're literally at a high level, expertise type level. And then for them, right, to now be educating the family and for that family to let go of control. I work with some very controlling families at times, or I work with some very enmeshed families. I get these extremes, right? I'm always trying to head families toward the middle. I talk all the time about gray is good, right? Can we be in the gray, not in the black or the white? And so that idea of the family that might be super anxious and over controlling and now allowing them, their child to come forward and them to sit back and their child to step into this leadership role, that's massive for, again, that child's self-esteem, but also mental health, right? Because we want our children to separate and individuate. And how cool is this of a thing to individuate into, to like own it, I say all the time when families are like, talk about on the sidelines, oh my God, like my kid's going to play D1 or my kid's going to do this. I'm like, this is the anti-drug. Like I'm literally standing here in the rain, in the snow, in the flying all over because my kids, not saying they would per se, but they statistically would probably be doing drugs from 3 o'clock to 5:30, right? So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's what I'm doing. So I have thankfully a good, healthy compass about my kids in terms of their athletic, journeys. And I think for these families, if it starts out as like, oh, this is just a healthy protective factor. I know my kid is with a healthy adult, learning a healthy skill with other healthy kids from whatever the hell time, that's good enough. But then it can emerge, like you said, where this person oh my God, and you never know, they're now pursuing this as a career, or even if it's not, it's just what an amazing building block for the next thing that they can take with them. It's amazing.
For a career, and we've had 3 students at Young Chefs Academy go on to win Master Chef Junior. So we know that they have the skills. And the social community aspect is so important. We have locations that are very great at, during the intro with a child, they're sort of doing a personality assessment to figure out who are they, how do they interact with others, where do they go to school, do they have siblings, can they work in a group, do they work more singularly, what class would be best to place them in so that they can have the greatest social interaction experience for that bonding, and where can their parents meet other parents and make the most friends. So having just been to locations in Texas and observing classes, one of my favorite things was seeing all of the parents stay, opposed to just dropping off their children and saying, I'm going to go run errands or do something with my other child, staying and talking and hanging out and drinking coffee together. And that's the part, is where you're really building these relationships.
It was Pinot Grigio. It was Pinot.
It might have been. They have a very popular wine bar next door. But, those parts of being able to interact and create connections in sort of, what is a third space? Like you just said, statistically, after school, a lot of kids might be doing something else. And this is the activity that they can look forward to in their week, where they're going to see other friends from other schools and the parents are going to see other parents from other places. And I love hearing, oh, my child goes to Young Chefs Academy and they're going to have their birthday party at Young Chefs Academy. And all the kids that are invited to the birthday party are all the kids they have class with at Young Chefs Academy. That's so cool. Because that's who they consider their real friends.
And again, whether you realize how brilliant you are or not, but I'll help you. You're
not saying that in a Southern accent, so I'll accept this.
No, I'm serious. There's so much brilliance to it because my brain just immediately goes toward, a million different things from, literally changing neural pathways to sending different diagnoses to the background. And of course, there are neurotypical kids that are part of Young Chefs Academy, traditional learners, et cetera. And it's just awesome, what a value add. But I'm thinking immediately of a child that might be on the spectrum that, again, is going to would traditionally potentially struggle with initiating social interactions, but now it's in a structured setting. I mean, one of the hardest things in the world for an ASD kiddo or neurodivergent kiddo or a kiddo with social anxiety is the cafeteria. I mean, that shit is so loud. It's so overwhelming. I mean, even when I go and I do presentations at schools, I'm like drained by just like, I'm an empath, and then my ADHD is just like taking everything in, and it's overwhelming. So to now be in a structured setting where you're actually learning a craft and a skill, And then the relationships obviously can expound upon that. But what a great, idea of like, hey, we're in this for this thing. Here's our commonality. And like you said, relationality can grow from that. But to have a shared vested interest that's now being taught and learned together, it's just brilliant from a social development standpoint. And kids, again, I want to go into studies after studies, but there's crazy studies coming out how isolated kids are, how dating is, I mean, so many things are down. So many, like what I call them, like kill a buffalo moments, or like quinceañera or mitzvah type moments. These rites of passage of adolescence are really gone. And so what a cool rite of passage, right? That again, it's not about, I'm sure there's always healthy competition in there, but it's not about status as it is about, right? We're all trying to acquire this skill and also support each other, and each one teach one. It's such a beautiful thing.
And you touched on such an important part of sort of the classroom management and the educational part that people don't realize is really the education that's taking place sort of behind the curtain, is that our curriculum is very specifically created and executed in a way for our age groups, because we serve as young as 3 and as old as 17 to be considered a kid, obviously. But we serve different ages, and we understand the sort of THEA process for those, with what is being taught, what's being learned, what's being seen, what's being demonstrated and executed. For a stimulus, what the child's thought is related to that stimulus, what their emotion is related to the thought, and how that is communicated from us of, oh, that's wrong, versus, oh, what did you try? Can we try that again? And then sort of the action that takes place. And so our classroom management is very particular of teaching people how to teach that maybe have never taught before, for a large and diverse group of kids from different socioeconomic backgrounds, different ability standpoints, different ages, but making sure that at the end of the day, you're sort of teaching the same thing to all of them, but maybe in different ways to reach them. And that's ultimately the goal, is how do we reach this individual child with our curriculum? And that part that you touched on of, during a kid's day, during the school day, there might be different parts where they respond differently to the stimuluses around them. We understand how to communicate, again, the curriculum we're trying to educate on, to different groups based on the stimulus of what's being taught or shown in the class, what they're demonstrating, the thought response, the emotional response, and then the action. So they can then take that home and show mom and dad, this is what I learned. And that's the piece, is ultimately, yes, you have to teach to the individual.
Well, and I love, and not, I don't want to have a bunch of teachers yelling at me right now, and I'm married to one. So, but there is, and my wife actually is the head of the fine and performing arts department for Salem High School. So I do think there's tons of cross-pollination here and crossover, because the tactility and the utilitarian, the thing I love about, let's say, the arts or this, is that it is very hard for a child to reverse engineer this paper that I'm writing in 4th grade somehow connects to something down there. And again, I'm not saying it's useless. I'm not saying it should be thrown out, and definitely open to having some educators on here, and we can talk shop about multiple intelligences and different learning styles and modalities, and
or how to demonstrate knowledge.
Right, exactly. But I love this idea of A to Z, and it's also, there's a delaying gratification of cooking. It's not like instant, but I like the idea of there is this tangible, outcome, and now that child is learning in real time, right, about that. And there's so much there on the neuroplasticity side of just the hook, and it is in the now bucket versus the not now. And so for my ADHD kiddos that I've worked with and treated and loved my whole career, and now I work with the families, that is really up their alley, right? That it's here, it's now, I see it, I feel it, I smell it, I taste it. I also like that piece of how you're approaching. I mean, that's always how I've approached coaching soccer, or of course the therapy work I do, which is like, hey, that was okay, or that was good. How do we go? What do we learn from that, right? What could be different, or what's another way, versus like, why did you do that, right? Or that's wrong. So that's a brilliant thing that I'm assuming there's a you said, a curriculum, right? Not only for the students, but also for the teachers. So the teachers can really, like you said, be in symbiosis with each student and hack how to ostensibly help that child, right?
Oh,
In
and
a
that's
very
something we are
individualized way.
always working on. I'm
Yeah.
working on that as
Yeah.
a parent all the
Yeah.
time. I'm working that
Yeah.
as somebody running a company all the
Yeah.
time. How do we communicate with one another? The message
Yeah.
sent isn't always the message received. So it's a
Yeah.
matter of how do I first take a pause and think about what I'm trying to say to this person, what I want them to take away from this, and ultimately, what do I want to have happen? And I think as educators in the classroom, we sometimes forget that, oh, nope, let's not do that. Nope.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to reconfigure how you're
Mm-hmm.
communicating, what you're communicating in a way that a child 3 to 17 years old might have a better response to it. And
Mm-hmm.
that does become a regional thing where in the South, I do hear educators speak differently than
Oh,
our
sure.
location in the Queens area of New
Sure.
York,
Sure.
and how
Sure.
the kids respond to those things. Where,
Sure.
you might say, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? And
Yeah.
kids,
Yeah.
that's just how they talk to each other, and it's
Sure. Well,
accepted.
but those are called localisms, right? If you think
Yes.
about it, or colloquialisms. So, sometimes we, label things with a broad brush, and it's really important to be in that person's shoes, in that person's environment, to be culturally competent.
Mhm.
When the other thing, correct me if I'm wrong, is that a parent, right, could become a franchisee if they wanted to, right?
Absolutely. We're always
Yeah. I
looking
mean,
for people that want to operate a Young
speak to
Chefs
that.
Academy or Flower Power
Yeah.
Studios. Yeah, so we have 34 locations currently in our system for Young Chefs Academy. We have 14 for Flower Power Studios. And if parents find themselves at sort of the intersection and are
Mm-hmm.
passionate about kids in cooking or families in cooking or adults in cooking, we'd love to have the conversation with them about opening up a location in their area.
That's awesome. So, to pivot, a little bit of a pivot, what has this journey exposed for you, deep dive, about you as a parent? Because I know this journey of being a therapist, a parenting coach, all this, every podcast, every family, I come home and I'm like, yeah, I totally messed that up, or I didn't really put, I didn't practice what I'm preaching here. So I'm always having the mirror held up on me, vis-a-vis the work I do. And I thankfully believe that the parents I work with keep my feet on terra firma and allow me very much so to see what's possible in the change process, because leaders create more leaders, and there's families that are leading in ways that I'm not leading in some areas, and then there's other areas where I'm leading ahead of other families, and I get to see what that looks like. And the sickness or symptoms is not that attractive if I ever thought they were. So speak to me, just nothing crazy here, nothing, but just what is this kind of opened up for you, like this journey of being a founder, and then Chef's Academy and the whole thing, and where this is going.
Yeah.
What has
Well,
been
first,
some
it's
eye
it's good to
openers for
know that
you?
I'm not here for the psychotic parent episode, because I would have said
No,
that's been the deep
no,
dive. But
no. This is not an intervention, Lee. It's not.
I'm prepared for my wife to come out of the background behind you to
Yeah.
say, finally, we can have this talk. But, it's something that, I think we spoke about before when we talk about parenting philosophies and sort of how you approach parenting. I told you the story when we first connected to actually talk about coaching for my child, potentially, as I have a child that certainly needs some additional help. And that I met a parent that had 2 sets of twins. And I said, oh my God, that's crazy. How do you do it? I have 4, but I think twins is even harder. And he said, do you
Mm-hmm.
want the real answer or the fun answer? And I said, okay, give me both. And he said, the real answer is maintain, contain, entertain, and feed. My
Mm,
job as the parent of 2 sets of twins, boys, girls, is to maintain the status quo. I only get involved
mm-hmm.
if I have to, but I try to make sure things are fair. So it's not 3 on 1, 2 on 2,
Mm-hmm.
people ganging
Mm-hmm.
up on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Contain. If we go anywhere, I tell them this is the boundary. If you can't see
Mm-hmm.
me, I can't see you. And if you leave the boundary,
Mm-hmm.
we're all going home.
Mm-hmm.
Entertain. I don't ever want to hear you're bored. You have siblings. You always have
Yes.
someone to play with. And if you tell me you're bored, I have pen and paper. I have a deck of cards. I have books, hacky sack, frisbee. You can always find something to do. So don't tell me you're
I
bored.
love that.
And then feed.
Yeah.
99% of the problems that they come up to me is he
Or
did this, she
hangry.
did that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
why don't you have a drink of water? Why don't you have a snack? And I
Yes.
said, that's
Yes.
amazing. What's
Yes.
the fun answer? And he said, look, I hope that if they're ever on a psychiatrist's couch and they're sitting down and they go, oh, my dad messed me up, they at least say, but you know what? He was really fun. And I
That's
found
right.
that to be so just over arching as far as everything that I see for Young
Yes.
Chefs Academy and Flower Power,
Yes.
because those are sort of the rules of engagement, if you will, for the educator in the space. They are really the conductor of the orchestra. They're not playing the instruments, the kids are. They're the
Right.
ones using the tools and doing the
Right.
skills. And
Right.
they are, for most of the time, standing there with the recipe and the fun facts and the questions. And yes, there's an assistant teacher demonstrating some things and making sure kids are safe. But really, the educator is
Of
the
course.
conductor, and they are there to maintain, contain, entertain, feed,
Sure.
and just make sure
Sure.
they're having fun.
Sure.
So my
Sure.
deep dive and journey has been realizing that that is something that as a parent and as a business person, I need to bring to all aspects of my life.
Those are good principles, man. And the contain thing, the contain, the maintain, the entertain, that's trauma informed care. Like what kind of drives me nuts sometimes when these treatment centers that are super bougie and trying to market me, want me to send all their referrals their way, and they talk about trauma informed care and they talk about all these fancy things. Trauma informed care is a clinician showing up on time. Trauma informed care is a chef, teacher, I don't know what they're called, a teacher, saying to a child, you're not acting so safely right now with that knife, and we're going to put it down. We're going to take 3 breaths and we're going to kind of revisit. That's setting a boundary. That's trauma informed care. Trauma informed care is also the stopping everything because I'm sure one of your teachers recognizes a kid maybe is overwhelmed or getting stressed out, or they start hearing the I can'ts and I suck and whatever, the inner B word or inner critic. So trauma informed care is so many things, and it kills me when people try to dress up everything and they miss the piece around contain, which, like, being consistent, right, is trauma informed care, right? If you say something, follow through, right? For your kids, good or bad, incentive or consequence, right? And again, I'm not saying you have to be 100% perfect on that. No one is, but yeah, I like that person kept it simple, stupid, if you will, right? Keep
Yeah.
it simple. But there's also so much brilliance in there, and there's a lot of freedom in there. My version of that is a little different around. My whole thing is energy. Like, I never want to be the dad that's like, I don't have the energy for that.
Yeah.
I don't have the energy for that. So I try to have where it's the entertain. I try to have the energy. But I love the piece that he's also asking the kids to go and be creative within what they already have. And I think, again, the sky's the limit for what you're offering in that kitchen, but yet there's also a formula, there's also a process, because children do need to be held in some form of a structure, right? This idea that we're just supposed to free range the hell out of everything, not
Oh, yeah.
necessarily. But do they need a break from a super rigid model? Yes.
Yeah.
And I think what you're doing is just fantastic. And, as we wrap up here, what's kind of like, it sounds like it's growing, it's awesome, it's happening, it's got momentum. Is there a big, hairy, audacious goal beyond where you are? What does that look like?
No, I think it's really just bringing the joy of cooking to as many children as possible. And that's certainly the goals with Young Chefs Academy and Flower Power Studios. For youth franchise brands, obviously increasing enrichment opportunities for children and families together is the ultimate piece. Maybe more focused on the vocational side, because as you touched on, that alternative schooling in the past where we knew the kids that went to an automotive program or an
Yep.
HVAC
Yep.
program,
Yep.
we sort
Yep.
of looked at them differently. I
Yep.
believe that is being reintroduced with a lot of value. And,
100%.
whether people call
100%.
them the trades, I think it's so important. And so we're looking at a lot of groups and businesses that expose kids and families and leadership development, corporate training to those things that they may not have been exposed to previously. Because there's tons of team building opportunities and doing an exercise that you've never done before. And just exposing people, again, to that creative thought, that process, that communication need with each other. And that's so valuable for kids, for families, and certainly for adults that work together.
I'm a huge fan, hence the reason you're on the show. Huge fan of you, huge fan of Young Chefs Academy. And just in case folks are interested in either getting their kid involved or they themselves are curious about what would it be like to be a franchisee, Young Chefs Academy, correct me if I'm wrong.com. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's correct. YoungChefsAcademy.com.
YoungChefsAcademy.com. And I'll end with my little PSA as well, which I always do. I am busy, people who are listening. I love what I do. I'm showing up big time for families. This is the time of year when a lot of those behaviors and norms and habits that were maybe we were looking the other way, we were distracted as parents, really took hold, whether it was cannabis use, vaping, whether it was, oh my God, no sleep regulation, no video game regulation. So now my phone is off the hook right now, people. However, I still have space, and I'm always wanting to jump on a discovery call with any of my listeners to learn more about how I can potentially help you create a powerful shift to take power back and create a culture that will net a resilient and healthy kid. So if anyone's interested in learning more about the Four Peaks Parents program, please go to fourpeaksparents.com. Thank you, Lee. You were amazing. Again, the website is youngchefsacademy.com. It also will be in the show notes. Anyone can reach out to Lee and learn more. And get your kids in the kitchen. Anything you want to say?
Get your kids in the kitchen. I can't thank you enough for having me. I'm not saying it with a Southern accent, but bless your heart for all that you're doing. I do mean that very seriously. I think creating exposure for parents to know that, again, they're trying their best, they're doing their best, but there might be more tools they can add to their tool belt out there, I think is so valuable. Because oftentimes parents, we feel like we are trying our best and doing it alone. And you do realize there is a community out there that might be experiencing the same things as you. And you can certainly learn from them and learn together. So thank you again for all you're doing with Four Peaks and for this show and having me as a guest.
I appreciate you. Take care. Be well. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye.